Ahoy, mateys, and welcome to the Pirates vs. Werewolves podcast. Get ready for another action-packed pirate raid into flash fiction. This week, we're diving into two tales that you sent in, The Wolf Within and Empire of the Moon.
These are fantastic stories.
Yeah, they really are, and we're going to be looking at how these stories explore transformation.
Yes.
Looking at what happens to identity and power when the supernatural suddenly bursts into the ordinary, or, in one case, the extraordinary.
Right.
So let's unpack these thrilling narratives and see what insights we can dig up.
I think one of the things that is so striking about both these flash fiction stories is that moment of change. It's really interesting, right? I mean, it's where the everyday cracks open and something very different takes over. And it makes you think about those moments in your own life, doesn't it, when everything shifts?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And our first stop on this pirate raid is The Wolf Within.
Okay.
This flash fiction story drops you right into a truly awful Monday for a teenager named Liam.
Right.
Backward shirt-jammed locker, a mortifying crush moment. Sound familiar?
Oh, yeah. I think we've all been there.
We've all had those days where you just feel off.
Yeah.
But for Liam, that feeling escalates in a big way during a dodgeball game in gym class.
It's such a great contrast, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Starting with the mundane frustrations of teenage life that we can all relate to, and then seeing how that then informs and is kind of the background for this fantastical transformation.
Right.
It allows us to kind of connect with him on that human level before all of the kind of bizarre stuff unfolds.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's unpack what kicks off Liam's transformation. It seems to be this intense cocktail, the sting of the dodgeball hitting him, the public humiliation of everyone laughing, and then this surge of pure anger.
Right.
That emotional overload seems to be the trigger.
Yeah.
He describes feeling this animalistic fury, a red haze, and suddenly his senses go into overdrive, his crush. Sarah's perfume becomes sickening. Even the coach's whistle is unbearable. That link between extreme emotion and physical change is a really key element here.
I think that's so fascinating how the story uses that classic werewolf trope, the emotional trigger, to maybe reflect on the intense and often overwhelming emotions of adolescence itself.
Yeah.
If you think about it, right, those teenage years
Yeah.
are just this roller coaster of feelings that can feel completely out of control.
Totally.
And I think the transformation could be read as an external manifestation of that inner turmoil.
That's a really interesting way to look at it. Then comes Liam's escape and this vivid physical transformation in the woods. The story paints a really visceral picture. Him running faster than ever, his nails becoming claws ripping through his sneakers, fur sprouting, his jaw elongating, teeth sharpening into fangs.
Oh, wow.
The narrative really emphasizes Liam's inner turmoil, this feeling of being both himself and something completely alien.
It's so disturbing.
The question of his identity, who or what he was anymore, becomes central to the story right there.
I bet. That moment of seeing his reflection must be utterly terrifying for him.
Right.
That sense of the familiar becoming monstrous.
Yeah.
It's not just a surface level change. It's a very deep questioning of what it means to be Liam.
Yeah.
He's caught in this really unsettling space between the human that he knows and the beast he's becoming.
And then the story takes this unexpected turn with Liam's father.
Oh, really?
This seemingly quiet figure suddenly holds the key to Liam's heritage. The discovery of this worn, leather-bound journal in the attic reveals this hidden history of werewolves in his family.
Oh.
Suddenly, Liam's feelings of being an outsider, that awkwardness he felt before, now have this whole new context.
Yeah.
It's not just a weird kid, he's part of a secret lineage.
Interesting.
When you encountered this revelation, did it feel like it offered Liam a sense of belonging even in this bizarre way, or did it just add another layer of complexity to his confusion?
I think it's a crucial turning point. On the one hand, as you said, it provides an explanation for his experience,
Right.
a reason why he might feel different. It connects him to a history, a bloodline.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's a massive secret, a potentially dangerous inheritance. For Liam, it's likely a confusing mix of relief at finally understanding something fundamental about himself.
Right.
And perhaps fear of what this new knowledge means for his future.
The story then introduces this looming threat of the full moon and Liam's desperate attempt to control his first transformation through meditation. Guided by this book from his father.
Okay.
It's a really pivotal moment, this struggle between his human will and this overwhelming primal force. The story describes it as the beast within raged a storm, barely held in check.
Wow.
Contrasted with these tiny gaps of control he achieves through breathing exercises. That internal battle must have been intense.
That internal conflict really highlights that classic theme in werewolf narratives, right?
Yep.
That
Yeah.
battle between our rational, civilized selves and our more instinctual, animalistic nature.
Right.
Liam's meditation, I think, is a powerful symbol of his attempt to exert his humanity over the burgeoning wolf within. It speaks to the idea that even when faced with these overwhelming forces, there might be moments, however fleeting, where we can regain some sense of agency.
The aftermath of that first full moon is really significant. Liam is described as battered but unbroken. There's no sudden acceptance of what he is, but there's definitely a shift in how he sees himself. He's no longer just the awkward kid, he's the kid with claws. And he seems to be tentatively embracing this wildness, even if it's terrifying.
Yeah.
The story ends with him deciding to stop hiding and own his freak status, hinting at this newfound strength he's found within the beast.
I think what resonates deeply is that universal feeling of being an outsider.
Yeah.
So many people, especially during adolescence, grapple with not fitting in.
Yeah.
Now, Liam's situation is obviously extreme, but I think that the underlying message of finding strength and even embracing what makes you different is incredibly powerful. It suggests that what we might initially perceive as a weakness or a flaw can in fact become a source of resilience and unique identity.
Now let's steer our pirate raid towards a completely different setting and a very different character. Julius Caesar in Empire of the Moon.
Okay.
Just imagine the Ides of March not ending with assassination, but with a monstrous transformation.
Wow, yeah.
This flash fiction story throws this wild supernatural curveball right into the middle of a pivotal moment in Roman history.
It's such a brilliant and unexpected twist on a well-known historical event.
Right. I mean, we all know the traditional narrative of Caesar's death.
Right.
Introducing this werewolf element completely reframes everything we understand about that moment.
Yes.
And opens up this whole new realm of possibilities for the Roman Empire.
It really does.
The immediate aftermath of the stabbing is crucial in this flash fiction story. Caesar doesn't just die, he chokes on the betrayal. And this fiery surge, this animalistic roar erupts from him. The transition is brutal and visceral. Then he wakes up in the moonlit forum and sees this gruesome reflection. Fur, claws, glowing eyes.
Oh my goodness.
It really sets the stage for a very different kind of Roman Empire, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really emphasizes the sheer violence of this transformation.
Yeah.
And it mirrors the violence of his assassination.
Yeah.
It's as if the act of betrayal itself unleashes something primal and powerful within him.
Right.
And that stark image of Caesar, the all-powerful ruler, seeing himself as this monster in that puddle is just instantly unforgettable.
Yeah.
It speaks to a complete shattering of his former identity.
What's particularly fascinating here is the reaction of Caesar's loyal legion.
Okay.
Marcus, his centurion, doesn't recoil in horror at this monstrous sight. Instead, he pledges continued loyalty, recognizing Caesar despite this incredible change. That immediate acceptance forms the bedrock of Caesar's new reality.
Yeah.
It really speaks to the kind of leader Caesar was and the bond he forged with his men.
I think it absolutely highlights the immense charisma and the deep loyalty that Caesar commanded.
Right.
Even when faced with something utterly unbelievable and terrifying, his core supporters remained steadfast.
Yeah.
And this is a stark contrast to Liam's experience, where the fear of judgment and rejection is a central concern.
Yeah.
And I think it suggests that established power structures and personal bonds can endure even the most radical changes.
The story introduces this idea that Caesar's transformation was caused by a bite from a feral werewolf. And there's this quest for a mythical cure.
Okay.
But even as he's grappling with this curse, Caesar sees an opportunity in his new state. His enhanced senses allow him to perceive the Senate's conspiracies with this crystal clarity. The very event meant to end his reign, ironically, gives him this new level of insight and power.
That is such a brilliant narrative twist.
Yeah.
The attempt to strip him of his power inadvertently makes him even more powerful, albeit in a monstrous way.
Right. So what do you think about this twist of fate? Did it feel earned or more like a convenient plot device?
I think it plays with the idea that sometimes the very things intended to destroy us can lead to unforeseen strengths and advantages.
Right.
And I love the irony of his enhanced senses now revealing the plots against him.
Yeah.
It adds this layer of complexity to the story.
Yeah.
I think it suggests that even in the face of a curse, a cunning leader will find a way to exploit the situation to his advantage.
The confrontation with Cassius and the other conspirators under the full moon is a dramatic highlight.
Okay.
Caesar, no longer just a man, but a legend-given form, unleashes his monstrous power. The phrase shadow and tooth and claw paints such a vivid picture of that moment.
That scene is pure dramatic spectacle.
Right.
It takes the historical drama that we know and injects this potent element of supernatural horror.
Yeah.
Caesar, the renowned military strategist, now also possesses this raw animalistic power, making him an even more formidable and terrifying figure.
Right.
It's the ultimate power fantasy twisted by the supernatural.
Yeah. And then Cassius's dying words introduce this whole other layer of intrigue. The she-wolf, the prophecy. This hints at this deeper plot, a manipulation involving a werewolf in the hills, intended to somehow replace Caesar.
Oh, wow.
So this wasn't just a random attack, it was a calculated move that backfired spectacularly. In those final moments with Cassius, the pieces of this monstrous puzzle seem to fall into place for Caesar.
This elevates the story beyond a simple, what if Caesar became a werewolf scenario, and it introduces political machinations and hidden agenda.
Right.
The conspirators weren't just trying to assassinate him, they were attempting to replace him with something that they thought they could control.
Right.
And it adds a layer of manipulation and a sense of a larger unseen game being played.
The ending of Empire of the Moon is really powerful. Caesar emerges in his human form, forever changed, to face this cowering Senate. His declaration, Rome had a tyrant, now it has a wolf. It's chilling, and really sets a new tone for his rule. This isn't a return to the status quo. It's the dawn of an era defined by his dual nature. Human cunning combined with bestial power.
The possibilities are truly fascinating to consider.
Yeah.
Will he rule through fear and intimidation?
Right.
Leveraging his monstrous form as a tool of control?
No.
Or will he attempt to integrate his dual nature,
Right.
using his enhanced senses and instincts to become an even more effective leader?
Yeah.
I think it raises questions about the nature of power itself.
Yeah.
Is it based on respect, fear, something else entirely?
Right.
This altered Roman history opens up so many compelling possibilities.
So as we conclude this pirate raid, what are the big takeaways for you from looking at these two flash fiction stories side by side? Both The Wolf Within and Empire of the Moon plunge their protagonists into this sudden, unwanted transformation into something monstrous.
Right.
But they offer such different perspectives on how individuals cope.
Yeah.
Liam struggles with his personal identity and the fear of being outcast, but ultimately seems to find a potential source of strength in his new reality. Caesar, in contrast, uses his monstrous change to consolidate his power and reshape an entire empire.
I think the most striking contrast for me is the scale of impact.
Yeah.
Liam's transformation is deeply personal, affecting his sense of self and his immediate social interactions.
Right.
Caesar's transformation, however, has massive political ramifications, altering the course of history for an entire civilization.
Right.
And I think it really highlights how the same supernatural event can have wildly different consequences depending on the individual and their place in the world.
It's also really interesting to think about the role of societal reaction in these stories, even though it's only touched upon briefly.
Yeah.
Liam is clearly terrified of judgment and tries to hide what's happening to him, while Caesar's inner circle largely accepts him. How do you think those different receptions might shape their individual journeys moving forward?
That difference in external reaction is absolutely pivotal.
Yeah.
Liam's fear of being seen as a freak will likely lead to secrecy, isolation, and a real internal struggle to reconcile his human and wolfish sides.
Yeah.
Caesar's acceptance by his key allies, on the other hand, provides him with a foundation of power and allows him to wield his transformation more openly.
Yeah.
I think it underscores how external validation, or the lack thereof, can profoundly influence how someone navigates such a fundamental change in their being.
These flash fiction stories, despite their brevity, really do raise some profound questions about identity power and where we find unexpected strength.
They do.
And they definitely tap into that enduring fascination we have with the blurred lines between what's human and what's animalistic.
I think the enduring appeal lies in that exploration of our own potential for change, both internal and external.
Yeah.
These stories allow us to consider what might happen if the boundaries of our identity were suddenly shifted, and how we might adapt and even thrive in the face of the unexpected.
Yeah.
They hold a mirror up to our own fears and aspirations regarding change and self-acceptance.
For those of you listening who are intrigued by these transformations and this clash between humanity and monstrous, you might find it fascinating to explore folklore and mythology surrounding werewolves.
I think you'd likely see recurring motifs, like the full moon as a trigger,
Right.
the struggle for control between the human and the beast,
Right.
and often the werewolf figure as an outcast or a symbol of something wild and untamed.
Right.
However, you'd also discover fascinating variations in the origins of lycanthropy,
Uh-huh.
whether it's a curse, a disease, or a hereditary trait, and the specific cultural meanings attached to the werewolf figure.
And finally, a thought to leave you with. If you were suddenly faced with a hidden, powerful aspect of yourself, something that others might fear or misunderstand, how would you choose to navigate that new reality? Would you try to conceal it, or would you seek a way to integrate it into who you are?
That's a question that really gets to the heart of both these stories, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It compels us to think about our own resilience, our capacity for adaptation,
Yeah.
and how we might respond to the truly unexpected aspects of ourselves.
Thank you for joining us for this pirate raid into the wild world of werewolves in flash fiction on the Pirates vs. Werewolves podcast. Rate and follow the show for more captivating stories. We'll be back next week with another thrilling pirate raid.